Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to the North Sydney Local Planning Panel. This afternoon we have 5 items on the agenda, and the first 3 qualify for a public meeting. So we will be hearing from submitters in respect of those items. The process this afternoon is the panel invites submitters, objectors to make their submissions to the panel, and then we invite the applicant to respond to those issues that may have been raised and answer any questions that the panel may have. So we then go into a private session later on today, whereby we determine these 5 development applications before the panel today, and then we will be making our decisions available on the website by close of business on Friday. So that is the format for the meeting this afternoon. As you're aware, we're still doing it via Zoom because of COVID restrictions. Where necessary, all panel members have inspected the sites, and we have all filled out conflict of interest forms. I will introduce myself first and then ask each panel member to introduce themselves and advise if they have a conflict of interest. So my name is Jan Morell, and I'm the chair of today's.
Oh, Jan, we can't hear you. Jan, we can't hear you, sorry.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I don't know what that does. Turn it on and turn it off. Okay. So then I'll ask the other panel members to introduce themselves. I have no conflict of interest in any of the 5 matters on the agenda today. Thank you, Mr. Pickles.
Yes. My name's Ian Pickles. I have no conflict of interest in any of the matters. I'm a town planner by profession. I've had over 45 years experience in both local government and the private sector. Thank you.
Thank you. Grant?
Good afternoon. My name's Grant Christmas. I'm a solicitor of some 25 years standing. I specialise in planning and environment law, and I have no conflicts with respect to any of the matters on today's agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jane?
Hi, my name's Jane Van Hagen. I'm a registered architect and a local resident in the North Sydney area for the last 30 years. I serve as the community representative on the panel, and I have to say that I have a perceived conflict of interest for item 2, so I will absent myself from all discussions on that in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So the first item that we have on the agenda for today being item number 1, and that is 64 Rangers Road, Cremorne, and this is for alterations and additions to a semi-detached dwelling. And we have the assessment report, and as I said, the panel members have had the benefit of reading council's assessment reports as well as a briefing from the council earlier today. I do have 2 submitters who wish to make a submission to the panel. So can I invite first of all Mr. Alex Zorakoulis. I can see you on the board here, and if Peter, if you could just let me know if I go mute again. I just
Sure.
Something with the system today. Yep. Okay. Thank you. So Mr. Alex Zorakoulis.
I can see them there. No. I'll give them a call.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. and Mrs. They are our only 2 submitters, and then we will. In fact, I don't have the. They are the owners of the property. And are they the only people that represent the applicant in this afternoon's meeting?
Yes, that's correct. Oh, it's just,
Someone appeared there now?
yes.
Thank you. That's the Mr. and Mrs. Zoropoulos. So if you'd like to address the panel.
Hello.
Yes,
Can
we
you-
can hear you.
Okay, sorry, we're having some technical difficulties at this side. Yes, Alex Urikelis is my name. I'm the owner of the property at 64 Rangers Road. Have been a resident here in the North Sydney Local Council for 15, 16 odd years. Always resident in this particular property. I just wanted to make just a general statement, I suppose, more than anything else. So firstly, thank you for assessing our application. We're here today, I believe, because there are more than 10 unique submissions that have been received. Of the 11 that have been received, we believe that the bona fides of at least 2 of those submissions is actually quite questionable, whilst the 3rd is being investigated. So we've notified council of this. So we just wanted to make that as a general statement.
Yeah, can I just say, if you can just focus on, you've got the council officer's report, and you if you have any comments with respect to that report and the conditions.
Yep, sure. So the only thing that I want to say is basically make a statement around the recommended exclusion of the skylight at the front of the property, on the grounds that it's an uncharacteristic element of the conservation area. Whilst we're conscious of the importance of the preservation of heritage contributory items, we're also mindful of the circumstances we live in today with respect to the new working and living habits that have been enforced upon us by the current pandemic. The main reason for us to seek the installation of a skylight is to provide additional amenity to a south-facing bedroom. This room's only natural light comes from a single half-sized, half-glazed external French door that is significantly recessed under the pitched roof and is permanently in shade. As a consequence, this room is very dimly lit with natural light, and in using this room as a home office for the past 2 years, lights are required to be on all day when working in the room, unnecessarily adding to power bills and our carbon footprint. The maximum light meter reading in this room that I took yesterday is a 72 lux level, and yesterday was a nice, bright, clear day. In contrast, a reading taken at the same time in my son's bedroom, which has a skylight on the western elevation, shows a lux reading in excess of 200 and does not require switching on lights to work comfortably in that room during the day. We've looked at numerous ways to get more natural light into this front room, including installing a skylight from the north-facing pitched roof. Salesman who came to give us quotes deemed it not worth the effort. Installing a solar tube from the western or northern pitched roof has been deemed as non-viable because of the distance and angles. Installation of solar-powered lighting would defeat the purpose of maximising natural light. So we also note from the general objectives of Council's own DCP that all dwellings should have reasonable access to sunlight and daylight, that dwellings are provided with sufficient natural solar access where the provision through conventional means is adversely affected or restricted or compromised, and developments should minimise their use of non-renewable energy resources. We believe that the impact of the small skylight will be negligible and it will match the position of the neighbour's skylight, providing an element of symmetry over their adjoining properties, as well as, albeit small, community benefit in terms of reduced power usage and carbon emissions. We'd also be open to installing a solar tube with a lower profile dome, having a smaller footprint than the proposed skylight, if that was an acceptable outcome for council. We ask council, or the panel rather, to consider the above points in their determination.
Right, so I just, could I just ask you a question, and that is, this skylight that's proposed, is it to be of a dark glass, non-reflective?
Well, we'd want it to be to let light in. So if it was,
I realise that, but
yeah.
I'm just saying it doesn't have to be a white skylight.
No, it won't be. It'll be a glass skylight. Maybe slightly tinted, but obviously not tinted to a point where that's going to negate the effect of it, right?
Okay, so it could be slightly tinted darker, just to, yes, okay. Yeah. All right, I'll just see if any of the other panel members have a question. Mr. Christmas?
Not from me, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Jane or Ian Pickles?
No, I have no questions.
Right, okay, and you don't have any objections or concerns with the other conditions that are contained within the report?
Is that to us? Question to us?
Yes.
I suppose we were looking at whether there would be a necessity to actually have a separate landscaping plan if we were able to provide through the redrawing of our existing plans landscaping ratios or that meet the 30% threshold, rather than having a completely brand new landscaping plan.
Well, it is a standard condition of the councils, so that's something the panel can consider, but there's no concern apart from the provision of a landscape plan. I think there is also the concern about the appropriateness of what plants would go in. That's why councils condition it this way.
Sure.
Okay then, rightio. So we have no further questions on this matter and no further submissions. Thank you very much for making your time available to us. And I just have to ask one last question. I'm very sorry. When do you know when the skylight in the adjoining property was constructed?
We've been here for 15, 16 odd years. It's been there since we bought the property. So it predates, I think we moved in 2006, 2005. So it predates then.
Thank you very much. Great, lovely. All right then, so this matter will be determined later this afternoon and be on the council's website by COB Friday. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Now, thank you. Now let's move to the second item, and Jane Van Hagen has a conflict. If you could just, we I believe, Peter, can exclude Jane. So Jane doesn't have to go too far. So we'll do that. Okay.
And you'll send me an SMS to rejoin, please.
Yep. Okay.
And if you wouldn't mind just checking every now and again, Jane. Yep.
All right. Okay.
Right, thank you. Okay, so the next matter that we have on the agenda is the demolition of the structures and construction of a Part 4 and 5-storey dwelling, integrated garage, swimming pool and associated landscaping. And this is for the property at 1 Baden Road, Carrabba Point. And I have to address this afternoon. I have sorry, one moment. I have the applicant, and I don't have. Oh, I do have a submitter. Sorry, I have a submitter, Byron Knight. You on the line?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me, panel?
Yes, thank you very much. Yes.
Panel, before I begin, may I have permission to share my screen in order to have an image from the applicant's revised clause 4.6 request before you?
Sorry, is it just you don't want to show us anything, you just want to refer us to the clause 4.6?
No, I want to refer you to a figure. It's also in the supplementary assessment report at page 4.
Page 4, okay. Right here, we can go to page 4.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'm happy for you to share if you wish. So
okay, wonderful. It's the same image in any event.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. Yes. Very well.
If you could confirm you can see that.
Yes, we can.
Okay, wonderful.
Yep.
So the panel has the benefit of our brief written submission, which sets out whom I act for. The units owned by my client are immediately to the rear.
Okay, one moment, just describe the units that you're representing.
That's 200 Carrabba Road. It's just to the rear here. You can see it where my mouse is.
Yes, I know where it is, but what number units are you representing?
Units 1, units 2, and unit 7.
Okay, then, and just point those out on the screen where you are now.
Certainly. Unit 1 is approximately here.
Yes.
Unit 7 is here. And there is another unit, which is unit 2, which I believe is here.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, wonderful. That's also in the amended view sharing assessment.
Unit 2 is just above Unit 7, Byron.
Oh, thank you very much. Yes.
So point to Unit 7 again. Unit 2.
Unit 2 is just here.
No,
No, I think you've got
Byron.
the-
No,
Yes.
Byron, go to Unit 7 on the ground floor, which you've been
Yes.
to, and then just above it is Unit
Just
2.
above there. Okay,
That's
thank
right.
you.
Okay, it's good to know where we're at. Okay, rightio. Thank you.
So I won't repeat the brief written submission in full, but I will emphasise a few points. With respect to views, we wish to emphasise that the views currently available are retained across the effective front boundary of all the units. With respect to Unit 1, notwithstanding the conclusions in the supplementary assessment report and original assessment report, our client maintains concern that there will be an impact on the views of Fort Denison from Unit 1. Turning to the views currently enjoyed from Units 1 and Units 2, we wish to emphasise that the impacted views are of Sydney Harbour's waters. These views are valuable water views and should be treated as having more value than that concluded in the amended view sharing report. Turning to Unit 7, whilst these views are currently obscured, the view of the Sydney CBD skyline is nonetheless impacted by the proposed development. The owner submits that this impacted view has more value than that concluded in the amended view sharing report. In light of the above, we encourage the panel to take a guarded view and to treat the impacts as moderate per tenacity. Very importantly, the non-compliance with height controls will result in some loss of views of the waters of Sydney Harbour from Units 1 and Units 2, whilst Unit 7 will lose most of the available view of the Sydney CBD skyline. With respect to the fourth step per the tenacity process, I again emphasise that the view impacts are in the broader context of non-compliance with the planning controls as to height. Respectfully, minor changes in design could reduce these impacts, and the clause 4.6 request states a simple flat roof would assist in this regard. Finally, in terms of the clause 4.6 request provided by the applicant, we have two key submissions. In terms of the environmental planning grounds relied on, the applicant notes that the proposed development is, quote, generally contained within the building envelope. We view this respectfully as an insufficient response. There is no automatic entitlement to another non-compliant building, and the court has made that clear in Made Property Group Proprietary Limited and North Sydney Council. With respect to the public interest grounds relied on in the clause 4.6 request, in particular, that with respect to residential amenity, quite simply, there will be view impacts to Units 1, Units 2 and 7, and this will be to the detriment of the respective owner's residential amenity. With that in mind, it is our respectful submission that the application should be refused, and unless there are any questions, that concludes my submission. Thank you, panel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nutt. I have, do the panel members have any questions of Mr. Nutt? You can take the view sharing down. Thank you, Mr. Nutt.
Thank you.
Panel members, any questions of Mr. Nutt? No? Okay, rightio, we'll move on to Jackie Hepard.
Thank you. I'm not submitting. I've done my submission through Byron Knight, our solicitors. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And for the applicants, I have Jane Mays Riley, planner, and Nicola Garardi, architect, and Ian Cady, town planner. So I'm in your hands as to how you wish to progress this in terms of who would like to speak first. Ian?
Thank you. Yes, so following the panel's request at last consideration, the panel was of the view that full tenacity assessment was warranted. And so possibly, well, that has now obviously been prepared and submitted. And Jane, did you want to maybe take the panel through those three key views in terms of your conclusions of tenacity assessment?
Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Hello, everyone. So my name's Jane Riley, and I was responsible for preparing both the preliminary advice and then views from the public domain advice, and then in addition, subsequently inspecting views from each apartment with their representative, and took views and stood in places that I was guided to stand in. So I always ask, where would you like me to take the view from, which I did. I would just probably cover off all the information's there, so I won't add to any justification as to how I've come to the conclusions, because hopefully it's reasonably well canvassed. But I would say that really overall, when all things are considered, and obviously in my opinion, the view sharing outcome is reasonable. There's absolutely minor view loss in all cases. The representative states that there's a potential loss of view to one of the islands, so I can't think which one.
Fort Denison.
Fort Denison. I'm very surprised to be able to, I can't understand how this is possible, given from Unit 1, the view would be highly oblique across the area, which is now not going to be built upon in the proposed design, doesn't fill that part of the space. So I find that assertion highly unlikely based on the modelling and the other views that we've recorded. The other thing from Unit 7, the lower unit, yes, a tiny, a narrow slip, a narrow horizontal part of the existing view of the upper parts of some of the towers in the Sydney CBD would be lost. But as per tenacity, this would not be considered a highly valuable or iconic view, and such a minor loss really wouldn't constitute, in my opinion, anything other than a negligible or minor loss, as we've stated, which would result in a reasonable view sharing outcome. And similarly with views from Unit 2, in some of these views, we have to say that there's actually going to be a net benefit with the loss of some of the taller structures on the site, including the chimney, the wider setbacks, etc. So overall, when all of those things are considered, and the other views from each of the dwellings that are not going to be affected, and the retention of the wider character and predominant visual characteristics in each view, that really the view loss, once again, as I say, in my opinion, is minor to negligible, and therefore is reasonable. And that's why I can come to the conclusion that I can support the view sharing outcome for those residents.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the panel? No. Thank you. Yes, back to you, Ian.
Yes, so Mr. Knight made a couple of comments with regard to Unit 7, the views of the city skyline. Those views are entirely obscured by fully compliant element of the building, that at that southern end of the building, which is the higher point of the site, those elements are substantially below the height plane, and the subject areas that exceed the height plane are screened behind with a foreshortening effect. They're significantly back. And so the clause 4.6 variation doesn't relate to that view of the CBD from apartment 7 in any way. With regard to units 1 and 2, as Jane was saying, the fairly marginal areas at the centre of the water body are significantly offset by the removal of other roof and chimney elements, which significantly intrude on the view of the harbour. Particularly that chimney breaks the land-water interface on the other side, effectively dividing their view in two. The removal of that element will provide one single view of the water, and that intrusion will be replaced by two very thin slivers at the lower part of the view. So I would say in both cases, the net effect is improved. In terms of the reasons, Mr. Knight also referred to our statement that a simple flat roof could address these non-compliances, and that goes to some comments from the panel at your last consideration. And indeed, these elements could be removed. They are proposed solely for architectural purposes to provide a superior architectural expression to the water that integrates the curved arches of the lower architecture with the upper elements to remove the vaulted awnings would achieve a very marginal improvement or change in views and compliance with the control, but would serve no other purpose and would create an appearance from the harbour of quite a disjointed architecture. So in terms of the planning outcome resulting from the proposed variation, the achievement of compliance would result in an inferior planning outcome in all regards. And finally, I would just note that the breaches aren't from projecting higher, they are from horizontal elements projecting further towards the water, projecting outside the height plane. So it's really just pulling the building back. It would result in no effective lowering of the building, as it were. But unless there was any further questions on those points, that is really our submission.
Okay, very well. Do we wish to hear from the architect? Nicola?
Me?
The architect there, Nicola?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, good afternoon. Yeah. I think my colleague Ian and Jane already covered the whole ground. And of course, we think that it is important to retain the design of the roof as a feature, as a public interest, of course. We don't want to just put boxes one on top of each other, but we want to create a design that is suitable for a waterfront. And yes, we, as Ian said, the front of the building, the shape of the roof at the front does not really belong to the variation in height. So we think it's good to stay.
Okay then, very well. I'll just check to see whether any other panel members have questions. Ian?
I just had a query of the architect concerning the southern elevation. Could you clarify that you've looked at the potential for removing the non-compliance at the top level curved roofs? Is there not some other way you can design those to minimise the, albeit small, non-compliance by taking away the curve? Or is there some, have you given some thought? Obviously you've given some thought to that.
Well, we think that to have an eave that protects the window, it's in the best interest of the facade, and it creates, of course, aesthetic value also for the look of the building. Yeah, we think that from our perspective, this is the best design solution.
Thank you. Yeah.
You were talking about the view from the street, were you, Ian?
Yeah, the southern elevation. I was looking at. Obviously, there's a minor impact viewed from units 1 and 2 towards the water, and I was interested in whether there is an alternative design for the roof on the top roof on the southern elevation to further reduce that non-compliance at the curved tops of the roof to the southern elevation.
Possibly, if I could answer that. That is typified by the view from Unit 7 in the visual impact assessment. That element sits well below the applicable height control. And if you look at the rest of the northern side of the street is characterised by quite substantial two-storey buildings, often with roof structures above. What is proposed on this site is a single storey then with an arched element above, but it is well within the height limit. The non-compliance occurs significantly further north. So the visual impact that's occurring from that part of the element has no bearing on the non-compliance.
Thank you. Yep.
Okay then. Thank you all very much. Jane, do you have any questions? Jane Van Hagen? Are you still with us? Oh, Jane's not with us. Yes. Okay, then we can call Jane back. And Grant, you don't have any questions?
No, Madam Chair, thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you all for your assistance in this matter, both the submitters and the applicants team. We will be making a decision later this afternoon. It'll be on Council's website. So thank you all for attending and assisting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we now have Jane back, and we will now move on to item number 3. And item number 3 is 372 Military Road, and it's the demolition of the existing shop top housing and the development of a 5-storey shop top housing with 7 apartments. And we have here to address the panel, we have a submitter and we have the applicant. So can I invite Anna and James Hole?
Hi, yes, it's just me, Anna Hole. I've just been wanting to address, I own and live in the southern facing apartment adjoining the development on the top floor. So I'm at 368 Military Road.
Yes.
My apartment is at level 4 and I have rooftop garden space on level 5. So I would like to, apologies for the sirens you might be able to hear in the background. It's the consequences of living on Military Road. So on my rooftop, I have views out to the east, across Mossman and towards the horizon. And this is a main part of, one of the main parts of why we purchased this apartment, because it had such a nice aspect out towards the east. We don't have a southerly aspect due to the building on the other side of Military Road, above IGA and Minsky's there, the service departments. The main cause of concern, so on the rooftop, there is the lift overrun that is going to interfere with our view, but also a built up, what I believe is a light well or like a dormer style sunlight. And understandably, the lift overrun is nothing that we can really affect. I understand that that's, you know, like I'm a reasonable person. I'm not going to say I want them to move the lift, but we would like to request that they reconsider the light well, as it is quite a high, I believe it was 1.5 meters measured, maybe a little bit lower, and it will be interfering in my aspect towards the east. I would like them to consider perhaps putting in a flat skylight or something which has got a lower profile so that it's not going to interfere with my aspect.
Thank you very much, Anna. And I do have the applicant from Platino Property, Jack Prale, is it?
Actually, I might speak on behalf of the applicant for the most part. My name's Paula Motek and I'm also from Platino Properties. Jack Prale is also here. He'll help me out if necessary.
So what was your name again?
Paula Motek.
Okay, and spell your last name. We haven't got that on our record.
That's okay. M-O-T-T-E-K.
Okay, yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to address the panel this afternoon. I might just deal with the issue that's been raised by the neighbour first, if I might, just we certainly have been aware of the issue that was raised in Anna's submission, and we did take that into account. And in fact, we did quite a lot of work to redesign, or moreover reposition what the clerestory window. It's actually a clerestory principally for increasing the amenity of the apartment below. It provides additional sunlight that considerably adds to the amenity. We moved that clerestory element, and we also changed the shape of the top of it. So it was previously more of a box-like element with a flat roof, if you like. We chamfered that off, so it was very much lower profile. And we have also done particular view analysis diagrams from the rooftop. Although we didn't have the opportunity to actually go, we were able to model it based on the levels that we have on surveys, etc. So we do have, and if I could have permission to share the screen, I might just point you to that diagram that was in the architectural package that was submitted to council.
Yes.
We've certainly taken into consideration the view lines that are available from that rooftop, and we feel that what we've done significantly reduced the likely impact from that space. It maintains views to the skyline and to the southeast, if you like, and as was pointed out, the building opposite on Military Road already takes out a significant portion of the south views towards the harbour. So we feel that has been an appropriate response to that matter, and it balances maximising the amenity to the apartment below while creating negligible impact on the view lines that are available from that rooftop.
So just use your cursor to demonstrate.
Sure, if you just, the top one shows the position of the rooftop garden that we're talking about. That's, sorry, here.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is a closer in model of if you were on that roof space, and there is the chamfered off clerestory window. It was previously a box structure and it was further to the south of the rooftop. We've very consciously grouped the plant as closely as we could together to minimise its impact, and we moved that clerestory to reduce the impact on the view lines.
And that element is above the height, maximum height?
It is indeed, yep. And we had a clause 4.6 to support that, which council appeared to support.
May I just make a note that is a full view out that side? So that will be removing more than half the view that I have from
towards the east, you mean?
Towards the east, yeah, because I don't currently have any building interference in terms of my view.
Yes, I understand.
So that's why I'm requesting that it be flattened out. One thing also, living here for a number of years, you get a significant amount of light reflection actually from the building across the road in the afternoons, and particularly in winter as well, when the sun is angled towards the north, you get quite a lot of light coming in that way. So, you know, but I just think that it's still going to significantly interfere with my view. And I appreciate that you've made the change, but it's still impacting, and the lift overrun will impact. I'm not putting in anything to say that's, you know, I'm not asking for anything to be changed there. What I am asking to be changed is to turn that into something flat so that it's not interfering with my view, please.
Right, very well. And the panel may have some questions, and can I just ask the applicant if they've seen the conditions that have been recommended to the panel?
Can you unmute me? Yeah. Oh, sorry, my apologies. I did just have a couple of comments on the conditions as proposed, if I might just add to my presentation briefly. Condition AA1 of the proposed conditions requires that we would modify the building to provide an additional 8 metre setback between the southern building line on the 4th floor of the building and the southern Military Road property boundary to address the Orpheum adjoining immediately to the east. We have always considered the heritage status of the Orpheum as being very important, and the design of the building has always sought to address that. We've modified the design of the building following the Council's design review panel comments, and we subsequently worked with the council planner on the issue of the upper level of our building, which seeks to provide a contemporary response to the mixed-use nature of this part of Military Road, as well as being very respectful of the heritage status of the Orpheum building. The approach has been one that we sought to create visual subservience in our buildings. So we discussed with the planner that we would change the colour, which was supported by the planner at the time. We had originally proposed a lighter shade for the upper level, which was going to be more consistent with the building immediately to the west. That we changed that to make it a much darker shade because it was believed that that would create a much more subservient view against the backdrop of when viewing the Orpheum. We were happy to make that change. We feel that changing the building line at the top level is not the best approach, because we think that it would create more visual clutter. It would create a lot more different building lines against the view of the Orpheum's facade. You would see the existing stepped facade of the building to our west, which its eastern facade is a white shade, which is exactly what we changed our facade away from. So not only would you get more of that facade, you get several different building lines cutting into the view of the facade of the Orpheum. We submitted a heritage impact statement prepared by GBA Heritage, and they were fully supportive of the approach that we had taken and felt that it was the right response, given that it was really about providing a transition from the heritage building to the existing mixed-use buildings further to the west. So we would ask that maybe the panel reconsider that condition, because we feel that what we have done has been very much about respecting the Orpheum's heritage. One last comment was to do with condition C1, which is about parking in the basement. There's a requirement that we would convert one of the spaces we had allocated for residential use to being for the commercial space. We have no problem at all doing that. The only issue we have is that the condition requires that that space would remain on common property in any strata plan. I'm instructed that that's actually not possible, that the space for the commercial use would need to be on that lot, and that only visitor parking can be on common property. So we would just ask that that be reworded to reflect that. But I'll reiterate, we're very happy to assign the space to the commercial use.
And what condition number was that?
That's condition number C1.
C1, yeah.
Okay, I just have one question. So what is your role in this, Paula? Are you?
I'm the urban planning manager at Placino Properties.
Okay, thank you. Right here, I think the panel does have some questions. Can I move to you first, Jane?
Oh, hello, I'm Jane. I'm the community rep on the panel. I have several questions. The first one being on your cover page perspective of the proposal from Military Road. I think it's a messy presentation to be adjacent, and I think it's distracting to be adjacent to the Hayden Orpheum. I've noted that you have a dark brick, which is a good response, but I think that there's a curved element, a couple of curved elements, and a lighter shade of something or other there on level 4, or level 3, sorry. I would expect that that is disruptive and distracting from the Orpheum. I think that should be changed myself. Is there a reason that you've had a contrasting treatment to the facade there?
The reason that cutout, if you like, was used was very much about transitioning from the height of the existing Orpheum building to the height of the buildings to the west. So again, that was something that was discussed with council's planner following the design review panel comments.
Okay,
That's why it was.
That's okay. That's fine.
Yeah.
One other question I have is in regards to the automatic operation of the car stacker. Is that amenable for electric vehicles and charging?
I might just defer to Jack on that.
Yeah, so there is an add-on that we put in these things that allows electric vehicles to be used.
Okay, that's fine. And my last question is that I've noticed that all bedroom 3s in apartments on level 1, 2 and 3 are a maximum of 2.6 metres wide. They're required to be 3 metres. So I don't think that they're acceptable under the Australian Design Guide. Could you make a comment on why you think that's an appropriate response?
Yeah, I might defer to Jack on that. He's been more involved in that.
I guess given the site constraints in that the building is only 9 metres wide, 9 metres wide, and then the majority of the bedrooms do comply with the minimum 3 metre requirement. It is only those ones that abut either the light well or the courtyard on level 1. We did in fact actually after the initial design review comments increase the size of the light well slightly, which also made it a little smaller. But we just tried to find a balance between I guess having amenity in the bedroom as well as providing access for sunlight and solar access.
I must say, I think it's pushing everything here. You have a design guide that requires a 6 by 6 metre void. You haven't provided that much width at all. You've got 2.5 metres wide, and you've got a compromised bedroom. And I must say that at 4 stories deep, that light well is going to be pushing it to get enough ventilation and light, in my view.
So just on that, we submitted a light rail report, because that was a concern that was raised in the beginning. And that light well report demonstrated that the building would have appropriate solar access, and it assessed that on the basis of a building we did down the road, 89 Parraween Street, which is similar dimensions, similar design, and obviously on the same street. And that was deemed within that report to be adequate.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
We have also incorporated trickle vents and things like that to maximise the cross flow of natural ventilation. Obviously, being on a military road frontage, it's not ideal to have big openable windows. So we've incorporated trickle vents as just to boost that ventilation option.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah. Can I just go back to one comment you made, Jane, about the brickwork on the facades? We have certainly discussed and would be amenable to changing it back, using that brickwork to the top of the building, especially against that facade of the Orpheum. But at the time, the council planner said the preference would be for a darker colour render. So that's the option we went with. But we would certainly be amenable to changing that material if it was seen that would be a more appropriate response.
The part that I think the darker colour is good. The part that I found distracting was the lighter colour.
Yeah, and we would be amenable to changing that if that was deemed to be a more approach.
All right. That's good. Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
No more questions from me.
No. Thank you, Jane. I thought you might have had a question about the setbacks.
For me, no, I think I know how I feel about the setbacks, and I don't. I think council's proposal is a good response. Set it back to the Lithwell myself, given what we've heard from the neighbour and what I understand to be a complete roof slab which breaches a height plane. I think there should be a little bit more. Yeah.
Could we just share one more image on the screen just to address that issue, because certainly I take your point about the lighter colour on that corner creating a bit of visual clutter, and I guess that's exactly my point about the response of cutting the whole top floor back. And we had a very quick, obviously we haven't had a lot of time to respond, but we have prepared a quick model that shows what that could look like. Is that, have you got that handy, Jack? Because it does.
So this was as submitted. And this is roughly what it would look like if we did the 8 metre setback to deleting everything south of the lift.
Yeah, and then that's the building immediately to the west.
Okay.
So in my view, that the curve elements don't help. They are distracting as well. I think everything else is rectilinear, and I don't think that that any distraction really can help in that regard. I think the step down should be a straight, ordinary step down.
Okay, all right. Just before
I had a couple of questions, Madam Chair.
Yep.
Looking at this issue of trying to achieve a respectful transition between the Orpheum and the proposed building at the top level, have you looked at the potential for only setting back the top level, only setting back half of the top level, so you actually delete bedroom 3, I think it is, and you retain the bedroom on the western side, and that would still allow a setback transition to the Orpheum Theatre, and replicate what you've done on the 3rd floor. And the other question I had was the clerestory over those 2 bedrooms. It seems to be directly over the top of the 2 beds in those bedrooms. Is it possible to set that further back so that you minimise the view loss from, I think it was Anna's terrace? In other words, setting the clerestory another metre or metre and a half further north. Is that something you could address?
If I might take your first, sorry, is that Ian? I couldn't quite see on my screen. In fact, your first question, have we considered just cutting back the eastern half of the upper floor? In fact, we have. Yeah. And that would certainly be our preference if it was deemed that there was no way that that it could be approved as proposed. That would certainly be a preference, and we could definitely make that work. Your second question about the clerestory position, my understanding, and I'll have to defer to Jack, but my understanding is that we had pushed that clerestory as far north as we could because of the position of the lift overrun, etc., the other plant. But is that in fact correct, Jack?
As well, and then also to still have it in a semi-decent position within the bedroom itself.
So it's not possible to reposition it further north?
It might be possible to move it a slight,
maybe,
but not very much.
Okay.
Probably, I don't know, another metre possibly, I reckon.
But we would have to have a look at that, just in relation to the other plant.
Thank you.
I have a question that follows on from that, and then I'll ask Grant. It's with respect to the terrace level that we have here, which is quite extensive for the penthouse, and I presume it is just for the penthouse.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's correct.
Yes, and have you thought, and I can see why your lift is positioned where it is. I don't want you to change the lift from the basement or whatever, but there is the opportunity of putting in a lift to just access that top terrace area in a different location. That it doesn't have to be the same lift well. You can just have a lift that goes up the one level to the terrace so that you don't impact views.
Look, not being an architect, I can't really provide any comment on that, I'm afraid, but
that would also have added complications as well, because you would have seen that level 4 is also accessed from level 3 through some stairs, and they're integrated. And so even if we didn't access it from there, it would still involve a substantial redesign, because we need to have that access from level 3 via the stairs in order to meet the fire requirements for having a non-fire isolated stair.
Right, okay. Well, I would have thought there would have been an opportunity anywhere on that rather large floor plate of level 4 to put the lift that just services the terrace. Anyway, okay, that's fine. I mean, I'm just looking at, it's over the height and these intrusions into then views. Okay, all right, Grant, you have some questions?
No questions. I would say, but I think I echo Jane's comments about the facade and that level 4, and particularly the colour. I think the applicant seems to be of the same mind that colour certainly distracts and contributes to the overall sort of bulk at that point. I think the curve probably doesn't help, but it's certainly the colour. If it was the same colour as proposed, it would certainly be much more recessive.
We are certainly amenable to changing that colour.
Yeah.
Okay, all right then. So there's nothing further on this matter. We will close the public meeting, and I thank all participants, both the objector and the applicant's team, for assisting the panel this afternoon and answering questions. And we will close this meeting, and the panel's decision will be on the website by close of business on Friday afternoon. So thank you all in respect of this matter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.